Hello my friends. Welcome to Reddit Rabbit. Before we start, catch the rabbit at the bottom right corner, smash that subscribe button and leave a comment. r/AskReddit. What movie death scene is seared into your memory? That pool guy who gets his heart ripped out by Fugees and sent into lava in Temple of Doom always got me as a kid. Still pretty memorable. The scene in Bone Tomahawk where they rip the guy in half. This freaking scene. I hate it that it haunts me and interrupts my thoughts every once in a while. I'd be thinking about work, my kids, planning stuff, wishbone scene, and my frickin' day is ruined. If you watch, he actually hits himself as they start hacking, adding to the horrible realism of it all. When the shark kills Kint in Jaws. This is mine. Probably because I was 11 and watching it in a packed theater. The whole experience is still a vivid memory. That movie blew people away. Hereditary, the car crash. The way he just goes home and goes straight to bed. Chilling. The way he just lays there with his eyes open all night. I don't want to imagine what thoughts were spinning through his mind as he lay there for hours. Then hearing his parents wake up, but not knowing what to tell them. Then hearing his mum go out to the car knowing what is waiting for her. That whole scene is so stressful on so many levels. His mom's shriek when she leaves the house haunts me to this day. Toni Collette got freaking robbed of an Oscar nom for that performance. Agreed. The scene at the dinner table is some of the best acting I have ever seen. She's exceptionally talented. In Silence of the Lambs when Hannibal gets a hold of the guard in his cage cell and starts biting his face. 9-year-old me was not ready for that, and I was less ready to hear my mum start laughing hysterically at the scene. I guess she just found it absurd. 9-year-old me was not ready for that. Was 9-year-old you ready for Buffalo Bill to talk about getting fricked in the mirror? When they crush Piggy in Lord of the Flies. I was probably too young to watch. Also, the scientist who gets killed in the elevator in Damien, The Omen 2 inches. I remember when I read The Lord of the Flies and I felt so bad for Pool Simon. I can't find my glasses sad face. I don't know why, but anytime a kid gets their glasses broken in a show movie, I shatter emotionally. The baby gorilla in the animated Tarzan. What the hell, Disney? That whole movie had a lot of death. Clayton's death at the end was really dark. Didn't notice the shadow of his hanging corpse as a kid. I was too focused on the machete. Also didn't notice that you can see Tarzan's parents' corpses. Tarzan's parents' corpses and little bloody paw prints. I couldn't accept that Disney killed Nemo's siblings and the baby gorilla, and I remember replaying the scenes, because I just couldn't get it out of my head. The shoe in Roger Rabbit's sad face. How about the steamroller scene? That movie was packed to the brim with traumatic whimsy. When I killed your brother, I talked. Just like this. Eyes turn into daggers. That scene still gives me the creeps. Love the movie though. No question. The scene in Casino where Joe Pesci watches his brother get beaten to death with aluminum baseball bats. The pinging sound haunts me to this day. And that was a true story, right down to the dirt in the respiratory tract from being buried alive. Jesus. I know the film was based on a true story, but I didn't know that about the scene. Makes it so much worse. Thanks for the nightmare fuel fun fact. Haha. 1917. When Lance Corporal Blake gets shot stabbed by the enemy he was trying to help after a plane crash. And then his best friend has to watch him bleed out and later tell Blake's brother about his death. Awful. That scene is incredible. You can see his face starting to get flush from the blood leaving his body. At the end it's stark white. Curb stomp from American History X. The sound of the teeth on the curb. I never understood what a curb stomp really was until that moment. It stuck my head too. The last scene of Danny Vineyard being shot in the toilet was also very disturbing. American History X is one of the few movies that's ever made me cry. Danny had just gotten out. He had his whole life ahead of him. That's the thing that makes Danny's death so upsetting too. He was just reformed the night before. Whether or not he would learn from his prejudices, he was still going to be killed the next day. Ghost Ship. A cable sweeps through a dance floor so fast and sharp it sliced people in half. This will always be in my memory. Wasn't the captain dancing with the little girl and she watches as his head falls apart? Wash. Serenity. Shepherd book. His last bit was just watching the people he cared for be miserable while he was in incredible pain. John Coffey from the Green Mile. Don't put me in the dark. I's afraid of the dark. That and the Cajun guy whose head lights up in the chair. Woo. He's cooking now. That guy was such a convincing piece of it I can't think of him in any other role. Bridge to Terabithia. Thanks for killing me inside. When I was in high school, a friendly, charismatic classmate and his little brother were both killed in a car accident on their way to school. The whole town was in mourning, and it was my first time dealing with the death of someone my own age, someone who I'd had classes with, the friendly class clown who everyone liked. I was not dealing with it well, and my mum wanted to help, so she decided that we'd rent a cute movie, something to take my mind off of it. I'd never read The Bridge to Terabithia, neither had she. We had no clue what it was about other than knowing it involved fun fantasy stuff. The ending of that movie sucker punched me so hard. We were in shock, and I remember crying so hard at the ending. It felt like I couldn't breathe. Looking back, the pool choice is darkly comedic in a how could this week possibly get any worse kind of way, but at the time it was horrifying. Not technically a death, but when Wall-E's memory banks got fried at the end, I felt that in my soul. Thankfully Pixar would never leave us on a note like that, but damn. That little robot moved me so much. I think it's really fascinating how much emotion and life you can put into a thing by just using eye movements. Littlefoot mum dying. Watching that as a kid was the first time that I realized that my parents could die, so that scene has especially stuck with me throughout the years. That is exactly when I realized that, as well. It was traumatizing as hell. If I ever needed to cry on demand, I could just think of him chasing after his shadow, thinking it was his mom. Saving Private Ryan is one of my all-time favorite movies, but I can't watch the scene where Malish gets stabbed. Mine is where Medic Wade gets shot and dies. Tell us how to fix you. It's brutal. Those last seconds of him saying he wants to go home and then asking for his mama. Jesus Christ. Heartbreaking. I like how that scene is somewhat foreshadowed by his heart-to-heart he had in the church the night before. Sharing with his friends how when he was little his mum would come home late from work and he'd lay in bed and pretend to be asleep. Makes me feel like he died with a lot of regret in his heart. In Titanic, the man plummeting from the sinking ship into the icy waters only to have his fall interrupted by steel, metal propellers. That did put a hell of a spin on him for the rest of the descent into the water. Is this the guy that falls and then spins? I remember seeing this back in '97 and the theater collapsed with laughter at that part despite how quiet and serious everything was. My kids loved Titanic, but always used to piss themselves at that scene and rewind to watch it several times. Gotta be the scene in Inglourious Bastards where Bridget von Hammersmark is strangled to death. That was intense. I feel like I remember the bear juice scene a little more clearly than this one, but yeah, this is still super intense. Will Smith smothering the dog, as it turns is an I Am Legend. In the Price version, they just had him find the germs under a microscope and next WEC he's burying a dog-sized cloth bundle with a steak in it. Boromir in Fellowship of the Ring. It gets dusty in the room just remembering it. I would have followed you, my brother, my captain, my king. Feels, the old wisdom that was born out of the West was forsaken. Kings made tombs more splendid than the houses of the living and counted the names of their descent dearer than the names of their sons. Childless lords sat in aged halls musing on heraldry or in high, cold towers asking questions of the stars. And so the people of Gondor fell into ruin. The line of kings failed, the white tree withered, and the rule of Gondor was given over to lesser men. A Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones. Made me physically ill. First time watching that my girlfriend and I had to pause it and regroup. Probably the most shocking moment I've ever seen on a TV show, and it was a good twist. Professor Xavier in Logan. Sir Patrick Stewart is such an actor. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Damn, that was hard to watch. Logan, what did you do? What did you do? Answer me. Jesus, even the trailer for that is brutal. Cedric Diggory's death in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. His dad crying and sobbing and just made me never forget it. That's my son. That's my boy, breaks my heart even just remembering it. My boy cuts me to the core every time. That scene is amazing though by all the actors. Cheerful music playing, but Dumbledore immediately sees what happened. Then Mr. Diggory seeing it, and the music coming to a stop as everyone else does. It was exactly the way I imagined it from reading the books. Harry gets back and it's all happy celebration that turns to sudden horror when they realize what happened.